Zombies fell over into the fountain slowly. Zombies walked slowly. Zombies,
I
the
try,
funny question is zombie was chasing me slowly up the
I
mountain.
try not to compare to the 28 weeks or 28 days later
Yeah.
zombies because they're so aggressive.
Or
Um,
the sequel, or not the sequel, the second. Oh, I don't know what you want to call it. The remake of Dawn of the Dead, which was not really a remake. It was just another idea. But the zombies, of course, were completely different in that.
well, I was actually going to ask you about that. So like you're part of one of the, one of this growing group of actors that has been part of this iconic film that was remade. Um, I am personally not a huge fan of the remake, and generally, like I'd say that they don't do the original justice. There's exceptions to that rule, but I mean, when you saw Dawn of the Dead in 2004, it's definitely a different film. I have seen both of them, now, um, and it's definitely a different movie. What was your thoughts on that?
Well,
I'm
I
curious.
don't consider it a remake. I consider it a different film because I mean, none of the sensibilities of George was in that second film. I mean, the storyline was similar. The mall was there, but I think that was sort of it. I think I don't think, and a lot of fans love it and a lot of people loved it and good for them. I mean, I think that's fine. I just think it's a different film. I think George is, sorry, my dog is now gonna bark for a
That's fair.
second because the dog, wait a minute, stop a second. The dog next door, they have some social connection here. So when one barks, the other one starts. Um,
That's how the dogs communicate.
yeah, it's like, yeah. Um,
It's the news.
That's news. I was going to say that, going back to the other film that was named Dawn of the Dead, a lot of people like it, a lot of fans like it, but I think they also separate it. It's not George's film, it's not George's sensibility, it's not his humor, it's not the way that, not just the zombies, but the characters had no real story lives themselves. Although, I mean, I love the actor. I mean, Sarah Polley's fantastic, and she's an amazing director in her own right now. And
Yeah.
it's funny that both of us ended up as directors.
I was thinking about that too. I didn't have that as a question, but it is an odd parallel,
Yeah, it is.
the two of you.
She's great, but it's just a different film. I mean, I think what was closer to George's heart, I'm sure, is was definitely Shaun of the Dead, and I would also say newer things like I think George would have really liked the way the Last of Us was done, especially I think there was the episode that was a sort of a tribute to the mall scene that they
Yes.
created. And
Yes. Episode 7, I believe.
something, yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny, they couldn't find a mall, they couldn't find a mall that reflected the same kind of mall that we filmed in at the time. Either they were too upscale or they were in such disrepair, so they had to create one virtually altogether. It was pretty funny. But and the other one I was thinking, of course, I think George would have loved Jordan Peele. I mean, that Get Out and all of his other.
Well, yeah, I mean that's very much it. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, out of the horror makers of today, few are as maybe socially conscious as George was. Jordan Peele might be one of the few like working right now that I think actually is. Which modern films do you think are kind of propping up his legacy?
Oh, definitely Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Definitely. That are frightening, that you follow the characters, that you get engaged by, that has social, relevance without hammering it with, over your head, but
Mhm.
through humor and being so, I mean, yeah, no, there's no question Jordan Peele is I mean, of his films. I'm not sure about the television things that he's been doing, but the definitely the films and Jordan Peele. I mean, I'm not a horror fan, so so I will not go out of my way to see any film in the theater that's a horror film, but I will always go to see a Jordan Peele film.